I don't think there's an issue with doing it, but you have to be upfront. So you need some really good documentation as to how this is going to be executed. It's Phoebe from HR Dynamics.
And Rebecca from HR Dynamics. Welcome to our YouTube podcast series. We still need to think of a name.
So we thought today that we might have a bit of a chat about KPIs and bonuses. Which, are you a fan?
Well, I know you're a fan. Yes, no, I am a fan. I think, and I think we're probably guilty of this a little bit as well. That to be a really, really effective KPI and really effective bonus, it can't be something that happens all the time. You actually have to reach that. And I think, in the past, you and I have at times been guilty of saying, oh, but they've done a really good job this month, even though they haven't reached their KPI, and we'll give the bonus. So I am a fan, but from a manager's perspective, I find it quite hard because, it's hard not to give it.
Hi.
Hi, Hazel.
Videoing a podcast.
Hi, everyone.
That was a hello from Violet. So am I a fan with them? Yes, I am. I'm definitely a fan, but I also think that they can be really badly done. I personally struggle with ones that are done over a full 12 months. The reason I like a KPI bonus incentive structure is because it keeps people hungry. And I just think that unless you're really showing them, you're on track or where you're at, I feel people lose focus, and it's just kind of whether they get it or not at the end. And if they feel they're not reaching the target and they're not going to get it at the end of the year, then potentially they can just switch off because they're like, well, I know I'm not going to get it because I haven't been able to get my figures to date. So I like small achievable bites, be that monthly or be that quarterly. I also can't bear them if they're too convoluted. So, too long and too complicated. And, you've got to be really careful. I've seen businesses do them when they've been net profit. And then the employee has the right to say, well, can you go through what all the expenses are? What are your drawings for this? And why did you spend money on this? Because this is impacting their net profit. And as you're a business owner, you're like, well, if I want to buy new office chairs, then I'm going to buy new office chairs, but it could have impacted their bonus. Does that make sense?
I think
we've seen a bit of argy-bargy over that, haven't we?
And I think there's something that has to be done. Obviously there is, KPIs and bonus and commissions have worked in the sales areas for, a really long time. I can't imagine any car dealerships selling, apart from Tesla, selling cars without, a bonus structure.
Tesla not have bonus structure.
No, Tesla don't have bonus structure, but then you order the Tesla car on the app as well. So you just go to they don't call it a showroom, they call it something else. And you go there and you look at the car and the person takes you through it and, it plays the Tesla song and all the rest of it. But have you ever seen that with the Tesla cars?
No.
Oh, so there's a thing and they play you a whole song and the windows go up and down and the doors open and close and then the lights like write the word Tesla. It's very cool. Plays this music. I'm not really sure why you need it in a car, but if I had a Tesla, it would be my party trick. That is for sure.
Right.
Yes, they don't do sales commissions because I asked the guy, as you can probably imagine. So yeah, which is interesting. But
because that's an industry that's traditionally, that and real estate and things like that are very traditionally commission driven. So I wonder how else they do it. I wonder maybe they just pay them high salaries to.
Yeah, and that there's a lot of brand recognition too, I imagine, with Tesla.
Yeah. Look, if you're going to do a sales sort of incentive, and it doesn't necessarily need to be sales, it could be about around productivity, or it could be about completing tasks. I do think that changing them up can also be quite good, particularly if it is around doing tasks. So over this quarter, these are the things that we want you to complete. You need to, get the filing system sorted out, what do they call them? The drive, stuff always wanting to.
Yeah,
and zero interest to me to get that sort of thing organized. I'm quite happy to work in chaos, but things like that, could be something to get that. So these are specific things within the business that you want this position to be able to achieve, and then you get to the end of the quarter or 6 months or whatever, and then you do a reset.
And they should all sort of incentive. And they should all cascade to the one as well. There should be an overarching KPI, and then everything, needs to be a smaller version of that, because there's no point having, the business KPI over here and the staff members KPI over here, and, they're not aligned. They need to be aligned. Yeah. Everything needs to
do really well at Starwood, like way back in the day, where you'd have the big five. Can you remember the big five? And the big five, and it really started off in the States, with the share market, what they were promising to the share market they were going to deliver. And then that went out into each region, so the Asia Pacific, and then it went to Australia, and then it went to the hotels, and then it went, cascaded all the way down, so that if everyone has to reach these goals, what's everyone's part that they have to play. And I actually really liked that, the 5 things that you used to have. Specifically, and you used to do a 6 monthly check-in, and then there was different weighting on each of those 5 things for your KPI, which again I think is quite good. I actually was writing up some KPIs yesterday for a client, and there were 3 areas. So there was it was for a CEO position, so there was some KPIs around the strategic plan. There was some KPIs around the leadership and organizational structure that they had, and then there was some financial KPIs, so cash flow, getting the budget approved, etc. And then under each of those, we allocated the amount, say $10,000. It was a third, and then we worked out for them to get the $3,300 for each area, what you'd have to do to get 100%, and what you get to do to get 50%, and what you get to do none. So for example, the organizational structure, if it was completed, it was in place, it was approved by the board, and it was aligned to meeting the strategic goals, the way they'd structured the organization, that was 100%. If they'd worked on the organizational structure, but they were still trying to formulate it, they might get 50%. And if they really hadn't done anything in that area, they got 0. And it was quite, like, it was a 1-page document. So it was quite simple, and it worked quite well. So doing something like that, I think, can work quite well. And I think it gives clarity. I think by going through this process, it was a new CEO position that's going in. I think there was clarity from the board as to what they wanted the CEO to focus on over the first 12 months. And the CEO had clarity as to what outcomes the board were going to be looking for and wanting to get. So and we had things in there about, providing reports and things like that to the board. And then, and one of the things in there was that they had to set KPIs for their management and leadership staff. So I was quite pleased with it, if I might say so myself. There seemed to be a agreement.
Yeah, look, I think that when they're done well, I think holding people to them, like I said, is the tricky bit. I think that's when they can fall down a bit, or when they become expected. So, and I think, but
we've done that before too, where we've just sort of paid them, as you said before, paid them regardless, and it becomes an expectation. I struggle with the profit share ones as well. Just because I find them really hard. They're really subjective as to what is the profit and how do we calculate it, and how do you take expenses into account.
And I think, to be fair too, there's a lot of things in that the staff member themselves can't control, and I think that then becomes, are they a simple KPI that the staff member has full control over? And there's always going to be market things that people don't have control over. There's always events, but as much as possible. So because we quite like this, and I quite like getting your opinion on things, I've got a list of quotes about KPIs for you to say
Right,
what
here we go.
it's like. Here we go. They're not pretty like the last ones, but
All right.
here we go. If you don't know where you are going, you'll end up someplace else.
Yeah, look, I 100% agree with that. I think that's setting expectations. It's like if you've got a roadmap and you know where you're heading, you're going to take the best route to get there, aren't you? So, yeah, thumbs up, Yogi. Happy with that one.
If you can't measure it, you can't improve it.
I don't know. I just don't know. Not everything is completely measurable. I don't know that it's 100% agree with that. There are some things. Sometimes I'm quite happy to sometimes go with the vibe.
Really? I just as a side note remember buying a car with you maybe 20 years ago where you said, I don't really care about the mechanics. I'm just going to feel the vibe of the car.
The vibe of the car. Yes. And that little purple Hyundai that we got turned out to be a very good car. It had good vibes until it got stolen. So yeah, look, I do agree with measurables. Measurables is much easier, but not everything can be done in quite such a. It's hard to measure creativity, for example. How do you put a price on that?
Yeah.
How do you put a number on that? And yet we know how important it is. And this is something that I do have some concern about, is that there's a lack of focus around some of that innovation and creativity and, blue sky sort of thinking, because it's not as tangible. And I think that, as much as we get, because AI can do all sorts of things, and computers and systems and generating it, but it's really that creativity that is going to give us a cutting edge of being a human. And that's something that we should be really focusing and fostering.
I agree.
Yeah.
So the goal is to turn data into information and information into insight.
Oh, I like that.
Ooh, data into information and information into insight.
Yeah. I like that.
I'm not sure about this one. Visualizations act as a campfire around which we gather to tell stories.
Oh God, no, that sounds hideous.
I sort of can't really quite get that one.
Yeah, it sounds like a whole heap of boring waffle and people going on rants, which just would give me the shits. No, don't like that one.
The greatest value of a picture is when it forces us to notice what we never expected to see. This one here, John Tukey.
Greatest value of a picture is when it forces us to notice what we never expected to see. I like that. See, what's interesting with that, which I don't know how that really relates to KPIs, but anyway, but what I do like with that is that, and you and I particularly guilty of it, is sometimes we just rush through, like we're all about getting stuff done, moving forward, low attention span, next. And we've got a society of that, and we sometimes don't slow down to see more or the bigger picture or get the further insights. So I think that's something that we're going to have to start to really develop moving forward as a society.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, aren't I?
And the last one, which I actually quite like, if you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
But it's so true. You can make anything, and I think, whilst we just said we need to be better at attention, sometimes you can deep dive too much.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I'm liking that. Most people use statistics the way a drunkard uses a lamppost, more for support than illumination. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good as well.
That's pretty good. Yeah, we like that one, Mark Twain.
And Albert Einstein's, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted.
Yeah, so Albert agrees with me. Pleased that we're on the same page with that.
So I think what that highlights, though, is just, whilst KPIs and they have to be measurable, there always has to be a human element. Yeah,
exactly.
Team members aren't machines. There's always a human element to everything. And I think that's probably the takeaway from a lot of those quotes.
Yeah, and like if there are a couple of big takeaways that I would have with setting, those sorts of KPIs and sales bonuses, keep it simple, less is more. Like I've got someone who's getting me to do some work on KPIs, another CEO position. And she said she's sending through, she said there's 27 KPIs that they've got at the moment that they'd like us to review.
27. How would you
27.
even, I couldn't even remember the first 7 of them.
Yeah, I know. It's like what they're really doing is they're putting a job description
into
as a job description, and they're trying to do it. And you still have your job description. They probably have 27 things that they need to achieve as part of their job description. But the KPIs, like the purpose of a KPIs, is that narrow focus of what you're wanting to achieve, and that's the benefit. It's just kind of getting that extra lift. Job description is overall what they need to do to be successful. KPIs like next level that we get. So for us in our business, how we use the KPIs is about chargeable hours. So everybody, they need to be pushing to make sure that they're working and they're being, clever enough in how they're getting it to be able to get those chargeable hours, because that's obviously what will flow back to make money for our business with it. So yeah, keep it simple. And have a plan, review them regularly or pay them out regularly. Again, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and also
profit sharing.
Yeah, and be careful with your super requirements on them as well.
Yes, because you do need to pay super.
So just be careful of some of those other requirements. It's not a way around being able to get out of some of that. And also be careful of the way they're reportable with STP too. As well. So, there's a few, there's a whole system that needs to go in place.
Yeah.
It's not a tax. It's not a tax or super dodge.
No, exactly. It just really, like, they probably get taxed more if they get paid it in a lump sum.
Yeah.
But at the end of the year, that's all going to even out for them when it's looked at. Cool. There is some one other thing just to consider that I have seen some businesses put in to say that if people leave in the preceding area that they don't get their KPI. So for example, if you leave in December and you may not get your sales bonus for the last quarter. So if you're not going to do that, make sure that it's in writing. Be very clear. I don't think there's an issue with doing it, but you have to be upfront. So you need some really good documentation as to how this is going to be executed. Otherwise, instead of acting as an incentive, it has the opposite effect.
And it shouldn't form part of your contract either. It needs to sit separately.
Good point. Yes. Not part of the contract.
So we should probably, if there's only one takeaway from this, don't have it as part of your contract.
Yeah. So the reason for that, just super quickly, is that your contract is set in stone. So that is something that you've negotiated, and to be able to make any changes to it, you need to have agreement on both parties, mutually agree. You can change contracts, but both parties have to agree. Whereas anything outside the contract, you've got more opportunity to be able to change it. So, what might seem like, yeah, these are great KPIs that will continue, but if the employee's with you for 10 or 15 years, they may be completely irrelevant or work in the employee's favor, or, just not be functional anymore. And if the employee's like, well, that's part of my contract and you have to continue to pay them, it can become a challenging, I'm not saying you can't change it, but it does become challenging with it to have to work through. Whereas, so just you can put in the contract you're eligible to be part of the company bonus scheme, that's fine, but then have a separate document that you've got a bit more flexibility on.
Excellent. Well, on that note, thank you for listening to us, watching us once again.
Any questions, give us a call, shoot us an email. Love to hear from you, and go forth and conquer. Lovely. See you later. Thanks, Beck. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.